right, some good stuff from Patrick Corbler from Black Shoe Diaries, Penn State's platform for athletics there on SB Nation. So this is a program that's arrived. No, not made it to the national playoff, anything like that quite yet, although that could be argued in 2016 that they should have been there. And we're as good as anybody probably playing there. It couldn't be decided, unfortunately, on the field, but when you lose by that much twice, and that's the difference in the season, man, it's going to be interesting to see Penn State back on the field in possibly the best division in college football. So I'm not going to nail you down for any kind of prediction because we got months and months to do that, of course. And if you're anything like me, Patrick, you're doing that the Thursday before the season kicks off. So, but just your expectations, it's got to be not excruciating what happened last year, but you're still on the hopeful side. Now, if that continues for another 2 or 3 years, then it gets to be like, okay, we can't win the big one. We need to turn this thing over and get this thing done. But to be that close and know that you now can play with Ohio State, and of course, Michigan's there in Michigan State, but this is arguably the best team in the division, in the conference.
Yeah, it's funny because I think I don't want to speak for everybody, but I know for me last year with so much talent and so much experience was returning for Penn State last year that for me it was playoffs or bust. I'm not saying national championship or bust, but definitely win the Big Ten and definitely get into the playoffs. So when that then happened, it was a little disappointing. This season, I don't necessarily think that it's playoffs or bust. They return a lot of talent and talent is getting better and better in the program, but like we kind of said with the offense, losing guys like Barkley and losing guys like Jasecki, that's just it's a lot to overtake. I think people will definitely still be expecting them to compete for a Big Ten championship, but it shouldn't be like the absolute expectation. I think if you go around and ask Penn Staters, I think right now most people are thinking 9-3-ish. Or at least that's what I'm thinking. We're going to find out pretty early in the season, though, because they play Ohio State in, I think it's the last weekend in September, which is a little bit different from years past. Usually we don't get them until later in October. So we'll find out early in the season. And I guess the one thing with the 2018 team is that most of their toughest games are at home. Obviously, Penn State's 2 losses in this past season were on the road at Ohio State, at Michigan State. I think it's like 4 of their toughest 5 games are at home. They host Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Michigan State. The only really, really tough road game is going to be going to Michigan and Pitt, if you want to count Pitt, but I do not count Pitt. So in that respect, the schedule, while, getting Wisconsin obviously makes it tougher, getting them at home, which Penn State hasn't lost a home game since 2015 against Michigan. I think they're like 20-1 in their last 21 home games. So Beaver Stadium has been kind to Penn State, and that's going to be really set for the test this year.
So I'm sure there have been some contracts signed for future years with to bring in some big time opponents. I am a bit disappointed by the now 3 consecutive games against Pitt. And I grew up at a time, Patrick, when that was a huge game. That was enormous. Dan Marino and company and so forth on down through the years. But outside of the state of Pennsylvania, obviously Pitt is going to be Pitt. They're going to win 6-7 games a year. And it's not the kind of game I would like to see Penn State play, but it's the quote unquote marquee game among the non-conference schedule with Kent State, and I'm losing the other team. I know it's not anybody.
Appalachian State,
and
who is actually not that bad. It's not going to be a walkover. So
not at all. They're competitive and they'll play anybody. Just about anybody tough in the nation. And as you mentioned, Wisconsin, the difficult game out of the Big Ten Western Division with Iowa coming into Beaver Stadium as well. I'm a bit surprised by you throwing out 9-3, considering that that's Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State losing 3 of those 4 most likely.
Yeah, maybe 10-2. I mean, like you said, it's still so early, and I'll probably talk myself back around to 10-2, but granted I haven't looked at the schedule, but I know some of those are going to be back to back. I think like Wisconsin and Michigan are back to back games, so I could just I guess I'm setting myself up for low expectations for now, and by August I'll be 11-1 and Big Ten champs. So
I'm certainly not going to hold you to it. Patrick, we appreciate you jumping on here. Patrick Korbler from Black Shoe Diaries. Join him and the rest of the crew there covering Penn State athletics. Patrick, we appreciate the time. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, thanks a ton, Mark. It was good having me.